You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 80.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Bias.
Not very many people like talking about failure. In fact, loving failure is a whole nother level. And at the core of it, it's a really hard thing to love, to like. And so here's basically what's happening with failure. And a lot of us have this kind of association with failure. And I don't know really where it comes from, because somewhere when our cognitive skills kick in, we begin to attach failure with a whole bunch of meaning, and we create meaning and everything around it. And I think a lot of us get that. And then there's a lot of, in the mental health sphere, people are trying to kind of change the way they view failure and things like that. But on a whole, we kind of attach a lot of meaning to failure. And so what's happening is that we don't want to feel bad. We don't want to fail because we think we'll feel bad when we fail. Whether that's shame, humiliation, disappointment, whatever negative emotion you don't want to feel, you're trying to avoid it by not putting yourself out there and then failing if it doesn't work out. What I'm going to offer you is that actually all you're doing is prolonging that feeling of feeling bad. So when you fail, yes, you may feel disappointment, other things, other negative emotions you don't want to feel, and that's very present. And so your brain is like, well, I don't want to feel that now. I'd rather feel it later and just prolong it as long as I can. And we do that by stopping, by quitting, and it feels good in the moment to quit. That's why we quit, because right in that moment, it's a form of instant gratification, just like eating chocolate or anything like that. It feels good. And then later on comes maybe the regret. Oh, well, and then you feel bad because you didn't try, you didn't go after it, you didn't take risks, all of that. So failure is really about feeling bad in that moment, and your brain doesn't want you to feel it right now, and it's then going to put it off. Actually, it's trying to probably just get rid of it, but we know that doesn't work. We end up just putting off that bad feeling. It's in a different kind of emotion. And today I'm going to speak with you about failures that I have recently had, because I think it's really important to discuss things while you're in it, while you're in that failure, as opposed to, after the success, yes, I failed. And because it has a different meaning when your circumstances change. When you have achieved your goal, your failures automatically kind of take on this different meaning. But while you're in it, what is happening? And I also I said in about 6 months ago, I talked about my goal of being able to speak and understand French at a certain level. And I'll talk about that failure. So we recently did this time management series in order to attract people to the services that I provide as a life coach. And I did not obtain one new client during this whole series that I put out there, this video series that I put out there. And so I did not meet the results, so that's a failure. And I did feel bad, and I also questioned. I did a lot of doubting, whether I should change my course, whether I should not do this, and things like that. And I even questioned whether I should continue with my career and do yet another career change. Even all of that stuff was coming up. And this time I was more aware of it than I had ever been. And I was also a little bit ready for it, because that's exactly what our brains are going to do. And it's going to want to give you all of those good reasons to stop doing the thing that you're doing. And that is what your brain is going to do when you take that first step, and then that first failure is there. Because usually most of us will do something, we'll put ourselves out there, and then we get that first fail, and then we want to stop right away. And knowing that is exactly what's going to happen, all the doubt's going to come up, you're going to want to change course, all of those things are coming with all of that negative emotion that you're experiencing from the failure. And in that middle of it, it is so difficult to see, and this is why I'm going to tell you it, is if you can know that in that middle of the failure is that your brain is only focusing on what's gone wrong. Because you failed, it's like, oh, I didn't get the result I wanted. It can be any result you want. You wanted to lose 2 pounds this week, you didn't lose 2 pounds. You wanted to earn this much money this week, it didn't happen. You wanted to go out with a friend this week, it didn't happen. Whatever result you wanted and it didn't happen, that's where your brain is focusing. Instead of taking in any sort of new information or any sort of even positive information about the situation. And we may think that there is nothing positive about failing, about not achieving your result this time around. And I want you to try to be a little bit more objective about that. Try to focus on one thing that you learned from it. And we talk a lot about this, about learning from our failures and learning from the failures. But before even that you do that, I want you to think of just one thing. Only start with one thing. What is the new piece of information you got from that? I learned doing my video series is that maybe I need to condense the information a little bit more. Maybe it was too much of the video. And that is what I learned because I realized that maybe the videos were too long. And then the second thing I want you to do is to create a success in that. And again, you're not going to want to do it if you're feeling really bad. I know I didn't want to see at all what was successful about what I had done, because it's so easy to see that result and look at it and go, okay, where's the success? I did increase my number of followers. That was one success. It doesn't mean that even if you can't find something like a quantity or something like that, the fact that you're going to get up and try again is a success. We forget that is even a success. Okay, we had this one learning, and then my success is I'm going to try this new thing with that learning. That could even be a success. Now, it may not seem like you're going to love failure, but what it can do is have you look at failure in a slightly less negative way. That failure provides you with brand new information that you would have never received if you did not try. So when you go to put yourself out there, know that you are going to get some information. You are going to get actually a lot of information about something. And it'll be a lot more accurate than having it spin in your head. And the second thing is, even in the action of doing that thing that you wanted to do, there is a success. So I'm going to follow up with you on a goal I had set 6 months ago. And it was to get to a certain level measured by my French teacher in French. And I did not reach that goal. And so every goal theoretically has a deadline. And so I set a deadline. I didn't achieve it. And it could be, I really wanted to question that. I'm like, oh, this is not working. The time I put in. And again, my brain was doing all of the things I told you in the beginning, doubting everything like that. However, I'm not looking at the progress I made. I did get feedback from my professor on how much progress I've been making. And I didn't want to see it. And so here's the thing. If we don't reach something by a certain timeline, because everyone has a timeline in their head, and we think we should achieve something by a certain date, by a certain age. And when it comes to failure, know that if something isn't achieved by a certain date or age, you simply extend the timeline. You don't change the goal. You don't change the result that you want. You extend the timeline. And so I'm doing that. I'm practicing that. It's very difficult, as my brain is already like, might be another failure. I am going to extend that goal to the end of the year. And I will be able to follow up with you by the end of the year on whether or not I achieved the certain level that I wanted to achieve in French. And so I'm going to wrap it up with something that I think that we don't do enough of. We want the success, and the plan does not involve a bunch of successes. Because if it was already successful, then you wouldn't need a plan. And that's what's so funny, right? Success means, in this definition, and what I'm saying is you achieve a result that you want in your life. You want to lose weight, earn more money, whatever it is you want this result, and that's success to you. And that plan in our mind is associated with that should be successful, as if the plan is successful, but we haven't even achieved the goal yet. So how can the plan involve successes? The plan then needs to involve failure. So when we think about that result that we want, the plan needs to be a plan for failure. There needs to be failures ahead of time. You need to know that in the beginning. You need to understand that every plan, every attempt that you're making is a plan to fail. And that's okay. Because if you already had the result you wanted, you wouldn't need to have a plan. And so that plan that you create needs to be a plan for how many times you're going to fail to arrive there. I'm going to wrap it up with a quote from the Netflix series The Witcher, from season 2, episode number 7, from the character Yennefer von Vandenberg. And she says, "You can either be too strong to fail or too weak to try." I'll check back with you next week.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.